Alright, and sorry about the delay there once again, folks. We did have to swap out one of the members from Absolute Business as he had to go, so they have used their swap for the day, which means they're not allowed to use another one later. Anyway, though, game is now finally getting started, so here we go, guys. The Mistpedia Cup has finally begun, and it's Sharks with Lasers versus Absolute Business to see who's going to be moving on to the semifinals of this week's Cup. Gates have opened up, so let's open up our maps and check out the splits. From the blue team, we're going to be seeing what appears to be a pretty typical 2-on-2 split, pretty much exactly what we expected to come out from Absolute Business here. Once again, having those warriors in the middle tanking for them. They are going to leave one behind over here in the waterfall, but with this stealth push coming in from the red team, he's probably going to turn himself right back around in order to get himself back over to this point. Once again, you've got Ferox fighting along with Laser Lord here to try and take this, and actually Sly has taken quite a large margin of damage, even while running a very defensive warrior build here, and that's going to be a pretty big boon to be given over here to Sharks with Lasers, as once again, knocking out those warriors is not an easy task at all. Checking in on some of the other points back over here at the quarry, we do see both Thracket and Laser Moves fighting off against Torrent and 5-Gauge for control of the node here as well. Blue team once more having a much slower fighting comp here is going to take quite some time to win this node, if they even do come out on top winning it. But Thracket and Laser Moves, taking a look at them, are also very well suited for a long battle, meaning this fight could go on for a very long time. Checking out what is happening in mid very quickly, we do have Gorn fighting off against Genyon, but we are going to see Ferox joining this fight too. But once again, a warrior such as that can tank on for a very long amount of time. It does rely on his momentum though, as he needs to keep moving and he needs to be able to use those abilities, keep himself kiting, and at the same time while keeping up those stacks of regeneration that come in there from the banner. If you have those, it's gonna hurt, and as you see, he will actually fall. So far I'm actually quite surprised. Red team is handling oh, apologies guys, give me 1 second. We screwed up. Oopsie daisy, there was a server issue, guys.
Red team wins a capture point.
Respawn timer was still set for the 2v2 cups. We have to reset the game. Good. This is looking like it's gonna be a fun night. Alright folks, so apologies once again for that small issue. We do have to reset the server very quickly, as there was a residual server setting from the 2v2 Cup 2 days ago. We had server respawn timers set to 120 seconds, when it obviously should have just been set to 15 seconds. So, because of that little slip up there, we are once again going to have to go to a quick break, and we'll be returning as soon as the map resets with the real start here of this first game. Once more, folks, huge apologies for the big delays here. These are obviously unintentional. Blue team had to swap out a player, and this one was our fault, so we do apologize for that, but we'll be right back as soon as our players are reloaded in and ready to go for the real start of this first game. Just a few seconds, guys.
To your points. Seize theirs.
If you're ready to go, we'll maneuver.
And once again, folks, we are back. I do apologize once again for the big delays here. We were supposed to start like 25 minutes ago, but tonight's not our night. Anyway, going back into it again, we have basically identical splits going into it for this time here. Red team, Sharks with Lasers, is on their way over to the waterfall here at the moment. Blue team, though, once again, because we had to do this reset, is much more aware of this incoming this time and probably is going to have a much better chance of actually ending up fending it off here. Once again, obviously, because they knew that that ink was coming. Red team, though, is going to very quickly switch up the strategy. strategy, sending 2 of their guys over here to mid, specifically to go off against Sly and try to gank him down. No additional reinforcements by the blue team are here yet, but both of the engineers, Torrance and Spider-Man Birthday, are on their way into the point here right now, and they will be able to give that added chaos, which at the very least is going to force Ferox to kind of back off here. Right now, once again, he pretty much had free range to sit within the fight and go for deeps there, but as we just saw, there was a bit of a clutch move there by Ferox. Going through that portal is going to be able to make his way back over here to the waterfall. Unfortunately, just misses an opportunity for a decap as Torrance as well gets himself onto the point just in the nick of time to stop that decap from happening, and as such, once again, that play, while it was very clever there from Ferox, unfortunately, the portal was in a bit of an obvious location, and I do think that red-blue team was kind of awaiting something like that to happen. Meanwhile, back over here at the quarry fight, once again, we do have 5-Gauge attempting to save Genyon, but unfortunately, once more, we are going to have a secure stomp coming off there from Thracket, and they will pretty much have a guaranteed resurrection coming off due to that. 5-Gauge is still in a 1v2, but it looks like he is going to be peeling out here once again. 1v2, really not the best opportunities for him to try and win that type of scenario. If he can get himself alone with Laserlord, he might have a much better chance, but with Thracket in close proximity, and as well considering Thracket's ability to support Laserlord, unfortunately, just in general, that is a very bad matchup for him, and he's going to be much better served trying to get himself to mid. Unfortunately, when he arrives in mid, it is not going to be a safe place for him whatsoever, as there is a large amount of blue, as there is a very large red team presence here, and the majority of the burst here is here as well. Both Ferox as well as Laserlord were in the fight. Laserlord obviously having chased him from the other point, and Ferox being in here as a residual to the team fight. Both of those guys made very quick work of 5-Gauge's remaining health, and obviously were able to take him down very quickly. Now, Ferox is going to attempt to go for a decap here on the quarter. Keep in mind, going up against Genyon there might take them a bit of time, especially now with, especially with, even with Thracket kind of supporting him there and acting as a support for Genyon. It's probably going to take him a decent amount of time in order to knock Genyon out, because once again, running there with that Bunker Warrior build is going to be pretty much an iron wall, and the point definitely will probably end up taking him down over time, but it might take quite a bit of extra time, especially once again, now that 5-Gauge is in, that's going to force him back off the point and in general kind of away from it. No longer will he be able to do free DPS there. He will have to be a little bit more careful of 5-Gauge's presence. Checking out some of the other points very quickly though, back over here at the waterfall, we do see moves as well as Laserlord making another attempt at the waterfall. This time around, it's Torrance and Spider-Man Birthday. Actually, not this time around. For the second time here, it's Torrance as well as Spider-Man Birthday trying to defend the point, and so far those grenades are doing a very nice job, but unfortunately, Torrance did come under a little bit too much cleave there and fell into the down state. Moves looks like he has that secure stomp, and indeed he does, so that'll knock Torrance out. Leaves only Spider-Man Birthday up and alive. Unfortunately, Laserlord did succumb to the pressure, but it looks like Moves has him handled. They'll get him back up, and they'll bring that fight back over to a 2v1, pretty much securing it for the time being. But it actually look, nope, they'll fight there, so they'll secure that 2v1 and hopefully get the point in a second. Mid is looking like it's probably going to be stalemated for quite a long time. You've got both Gorn and Sly here. Neither of these guys are going to be able to provide adequate enough damage to kill each other anytime soon, which means that fight is pretty much relying on reinforcements in order to end it. Meanwhile, back over here at the quarry though, those additional reinforcements from 5-Gauge really seemed to do their work, as there was a lockdown attempt that went over onto Ferox, and it went off successfully, knocking him out of this fight too, as well as allowing the blue team to now put themselves up to a 2v1. So with that said here, we do have kind of an even spread on both sides of the map here at the moment. We have Thracket down over here in a 2v1 in favor of the blue team, and then back over here at the, back over here, what I thought at least was a fight that was in favor of Sharks back over here. The waterfall has actually twisted itself back around, as we see both Moves and Laserlord under pressure. Lord obviously already knocked out of play, and Moves about to go into the downstate. Looks like blue team might come out of this with a 2-cap after all, and this was pretty much what I was talking about earlier. Both of those NGs are going to make this for a very, very hard fight, and with basically what I consider the iron wall of a Bunker Warrior here in the middle, that's only going to make it even harder, especially with 5-Gauge now there to support him a little bit too. Unfortunately, it'll take red team a very long time in order to get a successful cap on middle, and they're going to be in a very bad spot trying to fight on small scale skirmishes in the side nodes, because they will more than likely be a control NG in any fights they try to push. So right now, Absolute Business is just destroying their opponents based on basically out-comping them here at the moment. Now, while this will be a very large advantage on this map, even if we do see Absolute Business like taking this map in its current state completely, so if we see them just rocket ahead with this 2-cap for the rest of the game, I wouldn't count that as a precedent going into the next map, because you have to consider the way that they're holding this map right now is going to rely very heavily on their ability to kind of work their rotations like such as this. And on those other maps, I do feel that red team is going to have a much better time just in general trying to control those nodes better, and I think that this is very much so kind of a cheese comp specifically played out for this map. So even if it doesn't work, I wouldn't set it as a precedent going into game 2 here against Sharks with the Lasers. But anyway, heading back into the fight now, like I said, blue team has pretty much uncontested control of both of the side nodes right now. Red team did put a very focused 5-man force over to mid, and as you saw, that actually worked out pretty well. It forced blue team members off. These Bunker Warriors are actually kind of less tanky than I was envisioning them to be. It's been a very, very long time, like talking probably like I would say 5+ months since I've seen one used in a tournament, and I honestly thought that they were going to be a little bit tankier, a little bit harder to tank down, but it appears I was wrong in that regard, because the burst from here from Sharks with Lasers, specifically from Ferox as well as Laserlord, as we generally would expect, those are the burst players, it's actually taken them out very, very quickly. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that's because these are a little bit odd Bunker Warrior builds, or if that's just because, again, the burst is actually adequate enough to kill those now. That I'm not entirely sure of, but for whatever reason here, I do believe Blue Team might have overestimated the strength of those guys a little bit. As Red Team, while they are definitely down right now, I would not count them as out, as they're doing a very good job at trying to take back their own home node, and looking honestly like they might take it back here over the next few seconds. You do have 5 gauge under a lot of pressure here at the moment. Red Team doing a very nice job of trying to focus them down. Unfortunately, as those control NGs do, they do have quite a few cooldowns in order to keep themselves active and rolling in the fights, so it is still going to take them a very long time to lock him down. But there you go, now that he's finally run out of cooldowns, he goes down. It's now up to the Blue Team to try and save him, but unfortunately as well, they are not going to be able to achieve that goal. Had the Chaos Field over him, as well as plenty of corpse leave coming in for the members of Sharks, so it really just was not in the cards in order to get him back up and in play here. Spider-Man Birthday is as well going to get locked down directly after this, and it's looking like Red Team has enough of a snowball to where they're going to be able to take this point back over the next few seconds. Genyon and Sly, though, are going to make an attempt to get him back up. Very close, but yes, they do actually get it there. Thankfully, he died in a very good position. For those that, again, don't play Guild Wars 2 that much, there is a little bit, I wouldn't necessarily call this a bug, but it's just clever use of the Z-axis on this map, and the fact that if you die right down here or right over next to one of these ledges, you can actually res from the top area, which for the most part is going to be safe from enemy AoEs. They try to corpse cleave that down, so the very good dying position there of that teammate that had gone down actually allowed the 2 remaining members from Absolute Business to get him up there without much struggle. Unfortunately, however, I was talking a little bit earlier about the snowball that Sharks had running, and Blue Team is not really doing too good of a job of actually stopping that snowball from moving, which they really cannot do with the comp they have going here right now. They have a lot of things that can kind of muzzle their opponents, that can kind of stop them from dealing damage temporarily, but they don't really have any kind of big burst that can retaliate back against them. And that's the main issue with this, is unfortunately, if they fail to stalemate, and that's the problem with really all of these comps here that run without Bunker Guardians and rely on kind of bulky players, is that if they fail their ability to stalemate fights, then their opponents will get momentum, and that is their purest enemy. Momentum is the biggest enemy of comps like this. If they let their opponents have it, they will just rocket back ahead and get a very quick comeback. So with this said, this is a very good handling of the scenario so far by Sharks with Lasers. That was a good lockdown attempt there at the start by Absolute Business, but now that it's crumbled, they might have to start exercising some other options here to take things away, which, again, considering their comp, might take them a very long time to get something back. So at the very least, just based on the pacing of these fights, I do believe that Sharks is in a safe position to come back. Now, that could get squandered if some of their members start making mistakes here. Like we just saw Laserlord there a couple of seconds ago, was kind of overextending a bit over towards his enemy's territory. If he continues to do that, and if he gets a bit unlucky, or if he's not dodging properly and gets put into a stun lock and gets knocked out, that's a big piece of the damage that goes missing, and the Blue Team's ability to actually win the fight goes up very heavily, as once more Blue Team doesn't have to fear that kind of burst coming onto them anymore, and it gives them a lot more freedom of movement within those fights too. So just a few things there that Red Team does have to play carefully, and if they do that, they should be able to come out on top here. But once again, for anybody who's having issues seeing the score, of just, again, just not watching the video for some reason, we do have a current score of 200 points for Sharks and Lasers, as well as 296 for the Blue Team here at the moment. About 100-point lead still in the favor of Absolute Business, but that is going to deteriorate very, very quickly if Sharks continues on their current trend, as they still hold a very solid 2-cap, holding both their home node and the mid node, and at the moment are looking very likely to actually win the middle fight here as well. So continuing on from that, there is no pressure going on to the waterfall. Everything is contained here towards middle at the moment, and that's, again, it's more really the only fights that we do have going. So Red Team looking strong to stalemate, but this is what I was talking about earlier. This is what Red Team needs to be careful of. Lord is overextending a little bit right now. Does have some, I thought at least he had some additional support coming in there from Ferox, but does not appear to be the case. But again, I like what Lord's doing. Just goes in for a little bit of a poke. Did take a bit of a risk in doing that, but at the end of the day, kind of ended up falling back there, got himself back within safety range, and you know, is pretty much all right there. So once again, guys, and give me a second here as I am trying to manage another game from this arena. All right. So I do have to interrupt myself here very quickly in order to change the setting. I do apologize for that, guys, but we are trying to run the tournament from here as well. So there we go. Sorry about that. Just had to jump in there and fix that server real quick. But anyway, jumping back into this game right now. Sharks still holding that 2-cap. Blue team is actually, and to note this as well, blue team is very much so approaching that 350 point mark. And once again, for anybody that is not already aware, we do have the secondary objective being played here at the moment. If you do go in and kill this Lord past the 350 point mark, it's going to give you enough points to win the game. So blue team, again, considering that their original plan here to go in and just stalemate the fight has absolutely failed, and they're seeming to have a very large amount of trouble getting it back, which does not surprise me whatsoever. They are going to attempt to take the big gambit here and go for the Red Lord. Now, once again here, red team as well is making a nice job of handling this by falling back. I do, to be completely honest, feel that they do have security and they should be able to defend this Lord successfully, just again factoring in the overall lack of consistent damage coming in there from the members of Absolute Business, but they do have to be careful of what is, in my opinion, a slight trap with this team rushing into there. Even though we do see red team successfully defending the Red Lord, they do have to very quickly start falling back to their other points, as you can see here at the moment, they're already guaranteed to lose their cap back at the quarry, and they're also engaged back in mid, so if they overcommit to the defense, their opponents can still overwhelm them on the respawn, so they just have to be careful of a few things like that. Granted, it looks like things are going to come out just all right for them. Back over here in mid, they haven't lost the cap. That's the most important cap. They've only managed to get one member, 5 gauge, back over here onto the quarry points of this 2v1. Should eventually be able to reclaim that point in their favor, and actually they still do have the Lord engaged, but hold on, the Red Lord is still being DPS down. There is a chance they might be able to knock it out. A lot of condies rolling onto it here. Moves has to cleanse these condies off the Red Lord, and no, they're not going to get it. Oh my goodness, they kill the Lord, and blue team is going to get it. I honestly didn't think they'd be able to kill that Lord there. So with that said, condying down that Lord, and they're going to take it. They themselves don't even seem to believe it here in the map chat. So with that, red team seems to have pulled out a little bit too quickly there, and those two remaining members were able to condy the crap out of the Lord, knock it out, and as well, because they were past the 350 point mark, they're going to take that game. So Absolute Business, with a bit of a lucky break there at the end, takes it, which means they're now going to be up 1-0 in this set. And as well, that's just going to be one more victory away from them moving on to the next round, guys. We're going to take a short break to load into the next map, and we'll be right back with round 2 of Sharks with Lasers versus Absolute Business. Just a few minutes, guys. Be right back. And welcome back once again, folks, to the Mistpedia Weekly Cup number 17. We're heading into game 2 of our featured round of 8 game here between Sharks with Lasers and Absolute Business. We just saw Absolute Business take that first game there in a very, very delayed Lord kill that I don't honestly believe Sharks thought they could pull off there, to be completely honest, because once more, it seemed like the Lord Rush had utterly failed, but the 2 remaining members that had stayed alive after the majority of Sharks with Lasers defense force had left the Lord still managed to put enough condies on the Lord itself in order to whittle it down, so they won the game through that avenue. But now heading into our second map over here on the Forest of Niflhel, there is not really any sort of game-changing secondary mechanic. Now granted, if it is very close, there are still those secondary bosses here on this map, which are well worth 25 points. If we end up getting it that close, it could end the game on that avenue, but nothing as big as 150 points can be gained instantaneously on this map, so it's going to be a little bit more of a conquest-based thing over here in the Forest. But once again, at the start here, both teams managed to take 1 point. We had a little bit of an aggressiveness coming in from the members of Absolute Business back over onto the mine, but it seemed to have been fended off very well by both Ferox and Laser Lord there, and now pretty much has made their way back over to middle. But very nice snipe that we just had going on over there at the henge. Laser Lord made his way over there and managed to get a nice quick decap back over there just as 5 gauge was about to get onto the point too. Barely managed to sneak that off, but what that is going to do once again, it is going to pull 5 gauge off the node for about the 15 to 20 seconds that it'll take him to go recap that and get back over to this mid fight. And as well, that will give the red team an extra man on this point, as literally no one else is on any other points at the moment. It's all a big 5v4, and as you can see here, that decap has done its job, and now we are starting to see the blue team forced off the node a little bit. I think they do still hold contention on here, but red team definitely has the positional advantage with this extra pressure they have going off. Torrance as well as Genian are both getting extremely low in this mid fight. They need to get some reinforcements in here very fast, or this fight is going to start leaning very heavily in the favor of Sharks. Oh, and we just actually saw Torrance getting back up there, barely gets up with that banner. He literally, I think, was 1 or 2 seconds away from actually getting stomped out, so they get a little bit lucky in that regard. But at the same time here, the pressure is not coming off. We are starting to see Gorn actually get a little bit low here too, as you take a look at his health pool. But once more, it looks like red team does have the tank ability to keep going here, and we did see Genian after going down, and another banner actually comes out and saves Genian that time, so they're still holding on. And what is going on here now? Moves is actually starting to get low, as is Gorn here. They need to get some regeneration going over to the Shark side, as they're starting to run out of gas here too. Overcharged shot takes Moves into the downstate. We got poison rolling onto Moves. Thankfully, red team has their own banner to toss into the fight, so that'll get Moves back up, but he's not going to last very long. Look at all these condies going on to Moves here at the moment, just barely keeping himself alive. He's got no cleanse for any of these as well, still 10 seconds away from renewed focus to get his cleansing virtue back up. Actually, apologize, I don't even think he has the cleansing virtue. No, he does not. Is relying completely on shouts for Condi cleanse here, and as you can see too, while all this pressure was going on to Moves, he was completely unavailable to support the rest of his teammates. So Gorm back over there also pretty much got knocked out due to the additional pressure that was coming in there from members of the blue team. There is a chance for red team to salvage a situation with Torrance, but unfortunately have just wasted it there. Moves was still not ready to fight that team fight, and because of that could not go in for that stomp on a Torrance. Blue team, very nice job of turning that fight back around, albeit they did make very heavy use of res banners to keep it going, but it looks like they've managed to survive through the fight, and everything is coming out all right for them now. But because of the fact that this has taken a very long time to actually kind of, start to take an advantage here, the kills that they have gained, mainly Gorn was really the only kill that they actually took here, is probably going to get himself back to mid before they can take it. So while progress has definitely been made in giving blue team the advantage, and obviously with the cap, they have pretty much won the engagement itself, it is still going to take them a bit of time if red team continues to pressure it to absolutely clear the node. And with that said as well, because blue team had to focus so heavily onto it, yet another attempt at decap has gone out successfully by Lord. Lord did screw up there a little bit on the engagement with 5 gauge and got hit by these condies, but it looks like once again has cooldowns to handle that. Unfortunately, that means they won't be available a little bit later, but it seems for the time being he does have the 1-up on this NG here in the 1v1. And really, when you're going up against a control engine like that, it really is about cooldowns. If we see Laser Lord waste all his cooldowns and run out of initiative before we actually see 5 gauge doing so, then we will see 5 gauge winning that fight. If it's the vice versa, then obviously Lord comes out on top. And as we saw there, Lord, although I definitely think the RNG was on his side there with his fire and air rune procs, he definitely ended up coming out on top there 1v1. But pretty much everyone and their mother also came over to this point, so even though he did take him out, they managed to get him up because of those kind of shock reinforcements that were coming in over there. Laser Lord could not really stand that close to the body and attempt to take it out. But in the fight itself, back over here into note as well, red team Sharks has taken the full caps over the timing. They do have the slight advantage. Blue team once again is very quickly reapproaching this, and Lord is getting melted once more by Connie's there. Ferox is going to attempt to come in, goes for Lord first, still leaving his bunker guard on the floor, which could be a bit of a risky move, but thankfully does have the symbol of justice as well, and that will increase the res speed, thankfully getting him back up at a quick pace there too. Bit of a mistake by blue team, to be completely honest, and just trying to focus down their members. If you notice, this is kind of their strategy here at the moment too, is that they throw guys into the downstate, but I haven't really seen them going for stomps or really even that much court sleeve, to be completely honest. They've kind of just let guys go down and lead them to the wayside, and as we saw there with that double res scenario, that is leading to some issues. What they do that is good for them though is that the second they take a target into the downstate, they immediately switch off onto a new target, which is very much so keeping the majority of members of Sharks on their toes and keeping them very hesitant at best, which keeps them a lot out of the fights, keeps them from rezzing up their own guys, but because they don't go for stomps or corpse cleave, as we've seen here, it is making them a lot of trouble for actually eliminating those guys. But Laser Lord there actually, as we have to note this too, as Red Team once again is kind of retreating away from this fight, made a very large mistake with his Shadow Step and pretty much Shadow Step directly into a grenade barrage, which sealed his own doom, and now once more he's not going to be able for this next team fight. At the same time, blue team has chosen to take their time and go for a kill on this boss. Now granted, I do believe they have that little bit of extra time considering they're a little bit more tanky, but this is going to leave Genyan obviously a lot weaker when it comes to the main team fight, and if a blue team does not get a lockdown on one of the members of Pew, we may still see Genyan going into the downstate and getting knocked out. That's not to say that that's going to completely ruin the team fight for them, especially when you consider once again that Bunkers or Absolute Business is running with a much more tanky composition here, but that is going to obviously hurt them as quite a bit, and as you can see, it's already taken its toll. Genyan's been forced out of the fight. I think he's going to do a bit of a tag team here with Sly, and both those guys are just going to trade out for control of middle. They'll have they'll have Genyan go back, and actually no, they're both going to come to middle. So once again, they're going to leave their home node open, which means if we see Laser catching on to the Laser Lord specifically catching on to this, he'll probably be able to steal another decap again. And considering that once more, like I was saying there, it actually seemed like that boss kill pretty much sealed their own fate because they weren't able to get back to mid in time. Genyan had to swap out. One of their NGs had to take tanking stance on the point, and unfortunately, those NGs really are not built for tanking direct damage. They've got plenty of cooldowns to mitigate it, but the second they're out in the open and taking all that damage, they're still going to get melted down really, really quickly, in my opinion. So big mistake there on going for that Lord kill that has seemed to seal at the very least the decap, possibly the retake here from Sharks as well if they're able to keep this fight going in their favor. Now, to really no surprise, Lord once again went for another decap back over here at the henge. It seems as though the Genyan obviously was much more ready for the fight this time. Those Condis are, actually, I apologize, he's got a target at middle for some reason there, but once again, with Spider-Man Birthday being there, I don't think for some reason he wanted to fight Spider-Man Birthday, but he seemed to be a little more confident when he was fighting 5 gauge, so ends up pulling out of the fight there. I think it was because he didn't get a decap that time too, and there is still the possibility of losing the fight to the control NG, so without a decap, I don't think it was really worth it for him to continue fighting, especially when you consider just how well his team is doing in here in middle at the moment. It definitely, I think, was a better option for him to come towards middle and help the winning cause already here, and hopefully, again, guarantee them the cap at mid. Once they get that cap at mid, it gives them a lot of free movement, it gives them a lot of just in general rotationary power, and I think that overall is a much better choice for them to take. Now, there also was a bit of an interesting turn of events here too. One of the NGs that came out of spawn there for Absolute Business ended up going back over here to the mine, and as well, because of the fact that we actually ended up having to see, I believe it was Spider-Man Birthday come over here towards middle. Actually, no, Spider-Man Birthday left henge, it seems, and went back over towards through the beach back over to decap that point, but I actually don't fully understand why he went for that. He still had his home node held. I think he just kind of wanted to do something on the map here, and obviously really good call-outs here, or really good spots on the rotations that come out from Absolute Bunkers, or Absolute, I keep calling it Absolute Bunkers for some reason, Absolute Business by Sharks with lasers, because once more, almost immediately after we saw that decap happening here at the mine, we saw Thracket coming in here, and he got a very, very fast decap as well as recapture on this point. So right now, Red Team has done a very excellent job at out-rotating their opponents, and just in general, because of the fact that we saw Blue Team kind of wasting their time on that boss kill, they also lost mid because their bunker came under way too much pressure and was forced off that node very, very quickly. So at the moment here, Red Team, Sharks with Lasers, is about to come back into the game. They do have the lead, or rather they will have the lead in just a few seconds, 316 to 322. This is a very close game indeed. Back in mid, we're going to be looking at a 2v3 in just a second, so Blue Team does have an opportunity to burst down their opponents, but as well, Red Team really does not have the ability to reinforce it at the moment. Thracket is pretty much sitting stable back over here at the henge, and considering it is enemy territory, I don't believe he's really going to, he isn't really going to leave that point unless he absolutely has to there. So with that said, Blue Team might actually look pretty good to at the very least get a decap here in mid, if not completely retake the point. At the same time, Red Team might just manage to survive through the storm here, because it seems they've also wrapped up their fight that they had going back over there at the mine. I wasn't entirely sure kind of how intense that was going, but it seems as though it was going a little bit too intensely for the members of Sharks to handle there. So they ended up actually pulling out and coming back over here towards middle as well. So they are going to get those reinforcements. They've come in just in the nick of time, as we can see here, they're very close to a decap, but unfortunately, the reinforcements that are arriving from Sharks is very much kind of a wounded party, because you take a look here, Laser Lord pretty much went down the second he joined that fight. You had Moves coming in here, he's fairly low as well, and these guys, apologies, both Gorn and Moves have already been fighting here, so these reinforcements, while they have definitely held, might not be enough to spur the fight on. With that said, Gorn was actually recently saved because 5 gauge got sniped out over here in the corner too, so it's still really anybody's game here at mid, but because of the fact that Blue Team had that 3v2 going for, I would say, about a minute and a half, obviously they have gotten quite quite a large staging ground to keep the fight going. Moobs goes down for a second time, and thankfully Gorn has his banner ready, so they'll get that back up and into play. And we're trying to see if there's any side point action. There is some attempts going on around the map here for players to take away side caps, but unfortunately there is fairly good defenders really on both ends at the moment, so none of those are really going to be happening. We did see Laser Lord trying to come out of spawn and trying to take the decap back over to the mine, but there was a bunker warrior, Sly, kind of sitting over there, so that really was not a fight for an SD thief, especially a meta spec SD thief to take, so much better for him to come to mid once again. And of course we had an NG trying to take out Thracket, which would have led to a stalemate fight, and since red team obviously controls that, much better for them both to come to mid and just duke it out for control of that. So we're going to be locked into another very large mid fight for control. If it goes on for a long time, more than likely we will end up seeing Absolute Business come out on the top of the fight, but at the same time, if Sharks is able to lock down their opponents and take them out, and also watch their positioning here to make sure they don't fall into the AoE traps that I'm sure Absolute Business is trying to set up here, then they too can come out on top of this fight. Spider-Man Birthday going into the downstate. We also are going to see 5 gauge coming in for the start, 5 gauge attempting to come in there for the save, but unfortunately that's not going to happen too much either. So Ganyan will also fall, and it looks as though we've actually seen Sharks Lasers pretty much win this fight once again. So they've gotten control. Very good job of that. And once again, this is really attributing to the overall lack of damage on the side of Absolute Business. That's part of the issue with this comp, is the fact that they don't have kind of retaliatory damage to throw back onto their opponents, and because of that, unless their opponents make mistakes and allow them to get, and unless their opponents basically allow themselves to get locked down in those team fights, it's really never going to end up in their favor. That's one of the big issues with the comps. Red team as well has the Bunker Guardian. They're able to have that much better direct support, and obviously with the extra damage they're going to be gaining by running a Mesmer as well as a Thief, things are going to be looking much better for them. So with that said, it's probably going to be safe to call it. I actually don't know. Hold on, boss kill does get gained by the blue team over here. Spawner's still up in the air. You've got Sly and Ferox. Sly is a bunker warrior, but as we see there once again, we do still see Sharks able to get that boss. That puts them above the 500 point mark, so they are going to take game 2, which will tie this setup at 1-1, which is actually going to throw us into a game 3, guys. That game 3 is going to be over on the Battle of Kylo, and that will be coming up in just a few minutes. So stick around once more, guys, for the finale of this set. And this is a round of 8 game. We still got at least 2 more games coming up on stream, guys. So make sure you stick around, as once again we will be having the finale of this round of 8 game coming up here in just a few minutes. Be right back, folks.
The match starts soon. Last chance to nail down your strategy.
And welcome back once again, folks, to the Mistpedia Weekly number 17. My name is Blue. I'm your host for this evening, and we're now heading into Game 3 out of a possible 3 here between Sharks with Lasers and Absolute Business. We're in the round of 8. This is still the opening round here, actually, and we already have a Game 3, which, to be completely honest, I did not expect. But it is between the 4th and 5th seeds, so we kind of do expect that. So anyway, coming into this game, we are going to be on the Battle of Kylo, which is a map, to be completely honest, that we do not see played very often. It's straight up conquest. There are secondary objectives, but they are not worth any actual point value. They're only of a strategical value, meaning teams that rotate the best are still going to come out on top. There is obviously still that secondary objective in play, as I just said, and it is the trebuchet. But once more, the trebuchet is not worth any point value. As you can see at the moment, it is only a combat advantage. If you are not dodging those treb shots, they're going to be dealing lots and lots of damage and will knock you back, as you're seeing taking full effect here right now. But those trebs obviously can be killed and destroyed, and if you do destroy them, they will be completely inactive. But keep in mind as well that they can be repaired by picking up a repair kit and carrying it back to the trebuchet's corpse on the opposite sides of the map. So at the moment here, we do obviously see Red Team having quite a decent control of the map here with those treb shots coming in, but since they have now ceased, the tables may end up turning back into the favor of Absolute Business, just because, again, they have a lot more guys that are better suited to stand on point and tank that, and that is going to be a very large advantage to them kind of in this, that is going to be a very large advantage to them on this map in general, just because of the very small midpoint here. It's very, very hard for some of the members of Team Sharks with Lasers to actually stand on the node and continue to fight on there, just because, especially when you consider, again, most of the guys on the blue team are NGs, and that is just so much AoE potential coming in there. That's really going to hurt, and you can see evidence of that here right now too, from Moobs, Lord, and Ferox, all of which got very, very low from the excess damage coming onto them there. It seems as though that they ended up coming out on top, and, well, with that said, they're going to actually open up this game with a 2 cap. There is some pressure on one of their caps here at the moment. You've got 5 gauge trying to go up against Gorm for control of it, but with Ferox coming in, the obvious 2v1 advantage should be enough to secure victory here, or secure a defense for the red side. Other than that, there was a little bit of red team pressure. 2 members specifically, I believe it was their Guardian Moves as well as their Elementalist Thracket, tried to go over there and stalemate the match for a little bit, but obviously considering that 4 full members of Absolute Business were camping there, that endeavor failed pretty hard. So both those guys fell back, and they're now camping in mid, and we pretty much just have a waiting game here for our next fight. Red team, or blue team specifically, is going to try to push into mid, but once again, they're working against mobility that I talked about in game 1. There is really the big enemy over here of Team Absolute Business. They need to try and get stalemates directly off the start of the game, or they're going to be very much so behind, and they'll be relying on their opponents making mistakes to get themselves ahead again here. So back in the middle point itself, you've got Sly as well as Torrance at the moment trying to take back control of middle. Keep in mind too that they've still got that advantage on middle from AoE that I was talking about earlier, so people like Thracket are not really going to be able to stand on the node for a continuous amount of time. But keep in mind as well that both Thracket and Moobs are also supportive characters that can support not only themselves but each other here, and that does allow them to tag team a little bit here and hopefully keep the node decap. At the same time, they've got to be really on with those tag teams, otherwise once more blue team will take an advantage very, very quickly. But it seems as well the reinforcements have now come in from the red team back over towards mid, but keep in mind we still have this very, very close 1v1 back over here too that is between 5 gauge and Gorn. Gorn seems to be succumbing to the condies here over the next few seconds. Ferox comes in, actually gets the stealth, and as well 5 gauge just gets that Elixir S pop off in time, which will guarantee the stomp on the Gorn. Very well timed Elixir S, bit of a lucky one there too, as Ferox was just trying to go for his knockback, and as well just because that went off in time, it missed. But checking back in here to mid, blue team has also started to make progress here as well. Looking at Laser Lord here at the moment, who's really one of the last guys from the red team here in middle. The rest of them have kind of been either knocked off the point, trying to see where they're all at here at the moment. Yeah, a lot of them were forced to go down bottom to just get away from the pure AoE damage that blue team was bringing in here, and it seems that they have rallied the fight. They are going to attempt to get Lord back up, but even if he does get up here, it's not going to be the best scenario. At the very least, what it is going to enable him to do is get away from this fight and try to go for a decap or try to assist the fight that is going on over at the mansion, because once more, it just seemed that all that AoE damage blue team was dishing out back on mid proved to be a little bit too much for Sharks to handle, and because of that, they were basically evicted from the point. Thankfully, however, they were able to snag a decap back over here at the mine, which means they're still fighting a 1-1-1 cap it here at the moment, with 1 cap in their favor, 1 cap in their enemy's favor, and 1 point is decapped here, and they're actually getting dangerously close to knocking out Ganyan, which if they do that, that once again will give them a much better spot. And to be completely honest, taking a look at the comps here, this is probably a much better position for the members of Sharks to fight in here anyway. I talked about how very close quarters middle is, and that's very bad considering a majority of these NGs are AoE based, and if they're all within this one small area, they're really not going to have any room to spread out and get away from those AoE condies that are coming out into play, which can really hurt a few of the members over here on the red team. But now, fighting over on this point, they've got a huge open area here to fight on and spread condies around with avoid condies that are coming in from their opponents, and I just think overall that'll lead to a much better scenario for them to fight over here for side nodes. Now, this does also kind of spread them out a little bit, makes it a little bit harder for them to keep those caps because they don't have the middle cap, and obviously having a middle cap and a close cap capped for your team is a much better scenario just because of the close proximity. And considering, but when you take a look overall at the comp here, they should have adequate enough mobility to move between those nodes and ensure that they keep both of them adequately enough defended. It's going to rely on timing as well as just in general their usage of that mobility to the best of its ability. Otherwise, they will still fall behind here and actually end up losing the caps just to them being overwhelmed from respawns or things like that. But as we take a look, it seems that they're doing all right here at the moment. They've got a nice even spread. They had already had a few guys heading back over here to the windmill to counter out the obvious incoming that is now coming in here from the members of Absolute Business. 5 gauge attempted to come over there, but almost immediately, before he even got 3/4 of the way there, got fended off by Laser Lord. So once again, that's going to force him into an awkward position as he rallies back over here towards middle to hopefully regroup with some of his enemies. And this is very good as well because just consider this too, 5 gauge at the moment is really kind of sitting around here, walking around. He's doing nothing for his team at the moment. And in a scenario where you're 2 capped, that's obviously not anything you want to have happening. But going back over to the mansion, it seems that blue team is going to make another attempt to take back their home node, but they're having really hard trouble actually kind of establishing a foothold on some of these points. You can see back over there, one of their NGs, Spider-Man, has gone into the down state. Again, he was locked down by both Ferox and Laser Lord. Very good lockdown that's coming onto some of these guys here too, making a really hard time for them to actually get with their group and get onto the point. At the same time, fighting for this long of a duration as Moves has is still going to put a toll into him, and eventually blue team is going to mark a kill. So it was a little bit dangerous for him for a second. Thankfully, because they've got Thracket, once again that tag team play on the point will come in. They put Thracket on node and they move Laser Moves off, so he was able to heal. And because as well we were seeing those excellent lockdowns coming on to the members of Absolute Business a couple seconds ago there, they didn't actually have enough people to chase Moves off that node and take him into the down state. So it looks like again red team handling things very well at the moment, and if this continues, they're looking at a win here in game 3 as well, because to be honest, I don't see blue team doing anything else besides this. And if they're not going to be able to fight well enough to take back one of these points, then it might just be a GG for Sharks, because they have no other secondary mechanic to make the comeback with here. They really have to rely on their opponents making mistakes, which is really one of the huge cruxes with this composition. Spider-Man, though, looks like he's going to try to retreat back over towards middle. They've got full sighting on him. They know where he's going to go wherever he ends up going. We even saw there too that Lord was trying to get, or not, Laser Lord tried to get a little bit aggressive there with the decap. That could be, you know, keep in mind that if they do play that aggressive route and they end up making mistakes on it, that could also be an opportunity for Absolute Business to come back into the game. But at the moment here, they've got a secure 2 cap. There's literally no sign of it getting taken away anytime soon. Even with the pressure going off onto Gorn over here, they have plenty of time to get their guys over here, and they're already on the way. You've got Ferox coming in. Ferox is even just randomly attacking another enemy that's chilling up here on the catwalk on the way over. They're not worried about their position at all here. They've got an excellent spot, and like I said, so long as they rotate properly and so long as they don't get overly aggressive, and you know, as long as they don't get greedy, they should have this. There's not much, but like, and I don't like to talk pessimistically about a game kind of ending that quickly, but it really comes down to the comp here on the blue side is the fact that again they don't have damage. They don't have enough damage to push into a fight, and because they're all semi-slow and they're all kind of semi-clunky, while they can tank a point for a very long time, none of them can really win a large team fight unless it's relying on close quarters and their ability to abuse AoE, like we saw there on middle, or just in general their ability to spike someone down, which they cannot really do without proper coordination. And considering that this is very much kind of a toss-together group over here on the side of the blue team, I don't really see that happening. So red team has a much better comp for this sort of thing. Just in general, they can fight in a much higher amount of scenarios than their opponents can. So with that, I think it is fairly safe to say that unless we see a miracle happen here, Absolute Business is going to drop out here, and Sharks should be able to move on to the next game. We did actually see a switch up though, just to talk about that really quickly there. The pressure did come off a little bit too much there for Sharks to handle back over at the back over at the windmill. I think that was one of those missed rotations I was talking about, but they were already able to make up for that. They had one of their guys come in over here towards mid, and he managed to recapture that too. So even with the loss at that point, they're still holding a 2-cap. They might end up losing that 2-cap, but as well, considering the point differentials here, they are at a point in this game now where they can just turtle the 1 point they have and win the game through that. And they know that too. They're all just chilling over here. 2 of their guys are just sitting here screwing around, throwing things at each other. Yeah, all 3 of their guys, they're just going to attempt to turtle this node, and they can do that, and so long as they do that, they win. Blue team is going to make one last-ditched attempt to try and come in and decap this node. We're going to see if they'll be able to pull it off. If they do, they're obviously back in the game, but if not, then the game is pretty much over here, and Sharks within the next 40 seconds is going to be taking game 3, and they'll move on to the semifinals to take on what I believe will be Outplayed by Children. That'll probably be the next game we show on stream here. Immediately coming into that fight, though, Spider-Man goes into the downstate, Moob's coming in with a secure stomp that knocks him out, and you let that set. You've only got 5 gauge and Torrents left in what is a 5v3 here at the moment, possibly 5v2. 5v3 is what I'm seeing. Yeah, 5v3, and I think with those odds, it's very much so in the favor of Sharks, so they're going to be taking this one, guys. They've got a 2-1 advantage, which means they are moving on to the next round, where they will end up taking on team Outplayed by Children, and that is the next game that we're going to be showing on stream, guys, so make sure you do stick around. We are going to take a 5-minute break so that we can flip out the teams and get the new guys they need to get in here into this arena. Well, when we do return, once again, it's going to be Sharks with Lasers taking on team Outplayed by Children, coming up in just a few moments. Be right back, guys.